All right, we're back again. Understory Unfiltered, very special guest, friend and client of ours, Amir Atli, CRO and co-founder of HockeyStack. Welcome, Amir.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
Yeah, we're pumped to have you on. I mean, we talk to you all the time, but in a different capacity this way. Last time we had a conversation like this was in San Francisco, so I'm really pumped to do this and give the world a chance to know Amir, know how HockeyStack started, and a lot of different stuff that's happened behind the scenes.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm super excited.
So we'll break straight into it. So obviously, you and your co-founders are all very close. You guys all grew up together in Turkey, but I don't think people have a clear understanding of exactly how Hockey Stack started, other than maybe a couple LinkedIn posts. So would love to dive deeper into that. Tell us the origin story. You guys had a few other ventures prior to Hockey Stack. Let's talk about some of that.
Yeah, as you said, me and my co-founders are really close. We have been really close friends for a very long time, like 9, 10 years. And we were always building different startups, different apps, different businesses to not to make money, but it was just like I think this is a I don't know if it's a mental health problem or a disease, whatever you want to call it. It's like something that doesn't stop. So we were always building stuff, and then the last one that we built was like an app that was really successful. It was like a social media app, and the main problem I didn't really get to see this because I'm not that technical. But my co-founder, who's now HockeyStack's CEO, Bura, basically was always telling me like he doesn't understand or he doesn't know what type of features are leading to like better retentions on the app. And then he kind of built like a version one of a table where basically we see a flow of everything that the user does and then how their like retention, like a version one of not attribution but product analytics. So then, long story short, we built that product and turned it into like an AI powered uh, tool that shows what type of features and functionalities lead to higher retention rates. This is 2021, so pre AI, pre ChatGPT, pre everything, pre PLG. The total TAM is probably like 90 companies in the world that has a really strong PLG customer base that also has a trial that also has the power to buy a tool like that. So it didn't work out, but we worked on that for a long time, and we worked on the data layer for a long time. Then a year later or so, we kind of talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people said like this marketing use case is more interesting than the product use case. It's like doing the same thing for marketing, pretty much, which is attribution. So then we built that. We didn't start with success. I think that is like a misconception. We didn't start with success. We built that for like a year almost, maybe a little bit over the year, without a single customer. So we were building, trying to sell, wasn't successful. But we spent in total like 3 years building just a data layer of HockeyStack. Then at some point it clicked. I don't know how exactly, but at some point we were starting to get customers, not high ACVs. And then yeah, it just happened after that. After like 3 years of no success, suddenly we started getting customers. At the same time, we started building the LinkedIn side. Um, that starting that started being successful, like the LinkedIn audience. And then yeah, over the next 1.5 years or so, Architect just became what it is right now.
So were you guys already in SF at the time when you first started Hockey Stack, or were you still back in Turkey at the time?
No, we were not in San Francisco. We moved here when we had maybe like 5 customers or so.
Okay. So you really took a big bet. How did you,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, how did you guys get the conviction with 5 customers to say, okay, we're going to uproot everything. We're going to move to SF. We're going to commit to this journey and we're going to make this happen.
Um, I don't really know. I like to still to this day. I don't really know, but I think there was sometimes there's like a misconception that you need to validate an idea. I mean, it's not a misconception you need to validate an idea, but essentially, what it comes down to is you spend a lot of time validating the idea, and at some point you just say, "I believe in this idea," and then you do it. I think there's a big difference between validating an idea and then building something that people want versus basically making that product something that people want. There's like a wide, I don't know if that makes sense, but essentially when I think back, especially right now, we've been while we are doing this transition into from a reporting product into like a full blown platform for go to market, AI for go to market. Right now, it feels like went back 2 years in time and I'm going through the same exact thing. Like we are constantly thinking like, is this something that people want? We go out. Some people want it, some people don't want it. But when I think about attribution, like when we first started attribution, there were hundreds of people that said no. That some of them came back a year later. So it's really hard to know if this is something that people actually want or don't want based on what the market says. But at some point, you just pull the trigger and then say, this is something that I believe in. This is something that I want to spend 10 years of my life on. And then you do it. That's something that only would make sense if you actually went through something like this. Or maybe it makes sense to everyone. But yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And you've told us this in person, but I don't know if the rest of the world knows this. But let's talk about the end goal for Hockey Stack. What do you guys want to do? Do you want to exit? Do you want to go public? What's the end goal here?
If you want to go public, that's the biggest goal that we have. Yeah, going public. No, nobody knows what's going to happen, but that's a big goal.
No one ever knows. I mean, it's one of those things. You never know. You're just going to keep building and building and building. You scale it as
Yeah.
far as you can. Hopefully, you have that exit in mind. I find that there's a couple different types of founders out there. There's the founders that have everything mapped out from like an exact number perspective. Like at this number, we're going to exit. At this number, we're going to dilute equity to this amount. At this number, we're going to raise a Series C, something like that. Now, you guys are at your Series B, correct?
A publicly.
A. Okay. A. So you're at your Series A, and it seems like you guys have had, I mean, we work with you guys, so we know exactly how you are, but you're very organized. You have a very strong attention to detail. You know everything. So it's like, how do you, I guess, structure all these different milestones to know when you should raise another round, when you should hire another round? For you guys just bought a brand new office. You signed a lease in a huge office. It's insane for anyone who hasn't seen it. It's like, how do you know when the right time to do these things are? And especially considering like this is your first really sizable company that you guys have built together.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think fundraising is an illusion. You basically raise it around when you don't need it, pretty much. There's a lot of dynamics there. Essentially, what happens at most successful rounds, which our Series A was very similar as well. You, after your seed round, which we raised after we graduated from YC, you have like, let's say six VCs on your cap table. Then you start sending monthly updates, quarterly updates, usually monthly at seed. Then once you start sending really good updates over and over again, then at some point someone asks like, "Hey, are you raising?" And you say no, and then they're even more interested. So then, because on the update they see runway, they see like how much you grow, or key updates, what do you want from them, low lights as well, what didn't go right. So then they know that you don't need money, which means the business is doing well. They see the updates over and over again. So then the VC ecosystem, especially in San Francisco, is really, really tight knit. So then people talk to each other. They basically forward these emails. Then you start, if you're doing really well, this stuff happens. If you're doing really well, then you start having VCs. If you're in office, but you start having VCs knock your door, which happened to us before our Series A. Then basically it just happens. So the most important thing is growth. I think the number one thing is pipeline and revenue at the company. So like anything and everything at a company relies to revenue, including fundraising, including people's morale, including your office, including your team spirit, culture, values. Everything relies on pipeline revenue. So fundraising, you just basically get to a place where you don't need money, and then you raise it at that point. For like successful companies, a lot of companies also raise when they have 6 months of runway. But for like bigger projects like getting an office or any other decisions, I usually, and my co-founders are the same too, we usually think about what is going to be really important in 6 months and what is something that we can do right now. Then in 6 to 9 months we can basically look back and then say this was a great decision. Now this allows us to do XYZ, almost like a force multiplier. So the number one thing that I hate is the feeling of being late to something. So then we basically do everything to avoid that feeling. I mean, it's the same for my co-founders as well. We basically spend most of our time to avoid that feeling, which for a conversation like office or fundraising, it is like in 6 months, for example, if you have a goal of doing XYZ, and if that requires an office or if that requires a new round, than you do right now. So in 6 to 9 months, you don't feel late. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's based on pipeline revenue, and there's a bit of a gut feeling involved too, is what it sounds like.
That feeling too. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like sometimes you move extremely ambitiously, like buying the office? Because I've seen the office, it is huge. I don't know how many people you could fit in that office, but it is huge. Do you
Yeah.
feel like putting that pressure on yourself also just incentivizes you to grow even quicker?
I think so. I think San Francisco is also the same thing too. When you're in like Bay Area or like an expensive place in general, you need to survive. So yeah.
For sure. For sure. Go ahead, Ali. I see you're about to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna just say, going back to the like network in San Francisco, like obviously it's super small. Like even in B2B marketing in general, it's just such a tight community. But I know you guys were very involved with YC, you're YC backed. Like I would love to hear just how influential that is and how you view that as like a networking opportunity and how that also just like helps you plan out like these things that we were just talking about, like when to get an office, when to raise money, like how does that come into play?
Yeah. Doing YC was the number one most important thing that we have done for HockeyStack and for I think for our careers too. Yeah, so I mean we had an interesting journey because we got into YC as the first company in the batch, and then it was like there's like a Reddit channel, Reddit subreddit, I think, yeah, subreddit for YC. Someone posted there like HockeyStack got in as the first company, so then a lot of companies in our batch and the previous batches, the next batches knew about HockeyStack. That's like a unique thing. But also, we started YC a little bit later in our journey. Most companies start with an idea. We actually had like, I think 25, 30 customers. So we were seen as like the company that our batch can come to for advice because they were trying to get to 30 customers. We were going from 30 to 100. So essentially, we had a really tight-knit community around us, who came to us for advice, but also we were able to go to other people in our batch and previous batches. So whenever we had a problem right now, for example, we also did the same thing yesterday as well. No matter how late or early in your journey, Voice is a community where you can go to anyone in the world to ask for advice. So it definitely informs everything that we do, and any problem that we encounter, we always go back to YC for advice.
So that's the first place you go for advice always.
Always. Yeah. I mean,
It's
it
amazing.
also depends on what
You-
it is.
You got into, or when you applied to YC, you had customers already? That's what you said?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
We had a
Yeah, I
working
feel like it's
product,
usually the
30
opposite. It's like
customers,
an idea on paper or just a video, like a really well done video, but you guys actually had customers.
Yeah. That is why we didn't want to go into YC in the beginning. We had one of our first angel investor was a YC partner, and he kind of convinced us. Turned out to be great. So no complaints.
So if you would name drop anyone who's been the most influential person to HockeyStack's journey, YC or not YC, who would it be?
Yeah, first I made a post about it I think 2 days ago or so. Mike Heller, shout out to him. He unfortunately became a VC now, but he was the first hire at Clearbit. He became their VP of sales, I think head of sales, whatever the title is, but basically he led their sales team. He was their pre-revenue or just like a few customers all the way to, I think, right before HubSpot exit. It was before that, it was at Dropbox, early Dropbox, a really good sales team there. So he started working with us 1.5 years ago almost, when we were just starting out, when I was building the sales team, like version 1 of our sales team. And he helped me, one, think clearly about everything. He helped me think bigger. He helped our sales team. He worked with us as an advisor for a year before he became a VC. He is incredible. Anyone who wants their pre-seed or seed should raise from Mike. At YC, Michael was at one point the CEO of YC, then one of the first partners of YC, co-founder of Twitch, worked with the most successful YC companies in the world, like DoorDash, board member of Reddit and first semester of Reddit. He is probably number 1 or number 2 in the most influential list. He helped us shape our vision during YC. Still, we do lots of office hours with him. Whenever I have a really big problem, I would go to him. Mike and Michael, who else? Other than our team at HockeyStack's, of course, our team is really important. In our team, Mike and Michael, I don't know. I think those two are the first that comes to my mind from the recent times. And then also our very, very first investor, um, who basically helped us move to San Francisco with the first check. He also got in and Series A and seed, who also helped us get into YC to get in touch with our first angel investor. He's incredible. He helped us when we were basically running out of money when we were moving to San Francisco without customers with the very first check into HockeyStack when we didn't even have customers. Incredible in VC. Yeah. And lots of people.
How did you
from the
make
early days
that
of HockeyStack,
connection
of course.
with Ozge?
He
How did you make that
emailed
connection?
me.
Oh, nice.
He emailed me. Yeah.
I want to shift gears on you pretty hard. This is super interesting, but I want to shift gears on you pretty hard, and I think this is gonna be right up your alley. But
Yeah.
I have a sales background. You are what I would consider a master at sales. And I really liked what you guys have split up the leadership of Hockey Stack. Like, I feel like you are laser focused on everything go to market. You're super focused on sales, marketing, the entire picture, how it all comes together. And then your tool, Hockey Stack, actually helps you make informed decisions as well. So, one, how did you get as good at sales as you are? Because I feel like you had no professional experience outside of entrepreneurship. You taught yourself everything, or you just learned on the fly. So that's question one. And then two, how do you have so much faith and trust in your co-founders that you do everything in your silo, they do everything in their silos, and you guys all come together to build one hell of a company?
Yeah. So in the very early days, we were kind of like making committee decisions almost. Basically, like for any decision anywhere in the company, we were like making it together. That kind of like started becoming a little bit too much. Like, for example, I would write something like a blog post or whatever, then I would send it over to get their feedback, comments, and edits, and then we would like it was extreme. Then we kind of realized if we can basically divide into 3 parts of the business and then each does their best in their own respective parts, then we kind of move faster, and also we have complete trust. I think one, it comes with what we want to focus on. We want to focus on speed and execution, and also attention to detail. If you have one respective part of the business, you have more attention to detail and you can move faster. And the second thing is accountability. So one thing that I didn't expect when starting HockeyStack, or when I said I wanted to become an entrepreneur or whatever, is I think most people also don't realize this. With more freedom and more power, more responsibility comes too. So
Sound
you
like Uncle
essentially
Ben from Spider-Man. With great power
exactly
comes great responsibility.
exactly. So for example, when you say I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to lead a sales team, or I want to lead go-to-market for a company, that sounds really cool and really exciting. But essentially, it comes with a ton of responsibility, which means if you divide it into 3 and each basically can do whatever they want to do, of course, you like if there's something really big, you would consult. But essentially, we would make it really clear that in the go-to-market side, the final decision mine. In engineering, final decisions our co-founder, CTO, and customer success, product vision, the final decision our co-founder, CEO. So I can voice my opinion about a product vision or how customers should be managed or whatever, but it's not final decision. So, but in return, if something goes wrong on these respective areas, like the person that made the final decision knows that it will come back to them. So it's not like I don't know, I'm not saying they will get fired or whatever, but they will take the full accountability and responsibility, and they need to basically say, I fucked up at this. This is the roadmap to fix this. That is also their final decision. Like, they will need to fix that. They need to build the roadmap. They need to learn and build and fix it. Versus if it's like a committed decision, then you also need to fix it together, which across the entire business, it would suck. Yeah, it would be terrible. Then you basically are on board, like, now we have a new set of leadership. We have a head of finance, VP of customer success, VP of sales. So like we have other leaders at the company too, so they also know like they will make the final decision, but essentially they will also own all of the results.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. I mean, Ali and I practice the exact same thing. It's like extreme ownership and extreme accountability. And we push that down the ladder too with our team. It's like, if you fuck up, you better own your fuck up and you better fix it, you know? And it's like, it's okay to fuck up. It's not okay to fuck up the same way twice, though. That's
Yeah.
when it becomes a problem. But that's also what comes with accountability, right? It's like if you can own your own mistakes and then you can analyze where things went wrong because ultimately you know this was your fault, you tend not to make the same mistake twice. Versus if you make a mistake and someone else takes accountability for it, you're just going to keep making the same mistake because you never had any sort of punishment for it. Does that make sense? Either he's super interested or he's frozen.
I think it's frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just uploading. Probably it's recording.
We're back. A little bit of technical difficulty, but we're back.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, all good. But we were just talking about extreme ownership of your work and making sure that if you do make a mistake, you don't make the same mistake twice. And basically, if you let someone else take accountability for your mistakes, you never learn from them. So,
Exactly. I think we recorded all of that. Which
well, we re-recorded it now. It's completely unfiltered, Understory Unfiltered. Another question I have for you too. How closely do you guys use HockeyStack data when making decisions about how to grow the company? Because I feel like also another thing that's really interesting to me about HockeyStack is, most young companies right now are trying to do as much as possible with as few people as possible. I feel like HockeyStack has taken a very traditional approach and it's working for you guys, where you guys have been a very much openly sales-led company. Um, you're cold calling, you're running cold email campaigns. Obviously, you're running a lot of paid media. Like you're doing all of the traditional things and it's really working for you. So, one, how have you cut out the noise of we're going to be $1 million company with 5 people? Have you cut out that? And then two, why did you decide to take the route you did?
yeah, I think the overall we will become a $100 million company with 5 people is a complete lie. Like if you're not like the only companies that do it are like for example like Cursor, Lovable, and stuff like that, which is essentially a wave. I'm not saying Cursor and Lovable, so like we have a mandatory use of Cursor for all of our engineers. Like every single engineer that works at HockeyStack needs to use Cursor. That's great. Cursor Lovable, this is like a wave. For example, if a 25% better cursor comes up and then it's 10% cheaper, we will move all of our engineers to that platform because there's nothing that keeps us with cursor. Essentially, it's like a sidebar. It makes it easier to write code. Same thing with Lovable, for example. If you build an MVP with Lovable, like I see all of the time, like I built an Airbnb app with Lovable. That is not like what makes Airbnb. It's like all the other things that Airbnb has, like hosts, guests, distribution, services, actual people that have Airbnbs, service, customer success. It's not like the MVP version. Like these things are basically trendy and they get to really big revenue points in a really short amount of time, and it kind of dies down after that. So it doesn't mean that you built a $100 million company with 5 people. It means that you rode the wave to 100 million in 5 months and 5 people. Then essentially it slows down, and then you need to pivot. Then you hire more people. Then you actually build a product on platform. So it's possible if you build like a really trendy B2B, B2C mostly apps. But if you're building an enterprise B2B software company, it's kind of impossible to do that. It doesn't mean that you need to basically bloat your company, hire a lot of people, and hire people managers and all that stuff. I fundamentally disagree with the people manager concept, but it just aligns with our goals. We keep HockeyStack as lean as possible, and everyone is basically the best at their jobs. If they're not the best, they are not staying at HockeyStack. So that's kind of like my view on that. For the first part, we basically use HockeyStack for marketing, for product usage, for customer success data, for sales data, everything. So HockeyStack essentially is a product. We don't position it as like a customer success or product tool, but it's basically we can do the same thing that we do on the marketing side for product side as well. So our monthly investor updates has marketing data from HockeyStack, product data, for example. We basically analyze and closely investigate, and one of our key KPIs is product usage per customer, per feature. So basically every month we would choose one feature that we want to get the most adoption from, and then we would basically push it on the customer success side, and we measure it with HockeyStack. Like last month, it was attribution dashboard out of the box templates. This month, it's Odin. So we closely track that and then make decisions based on the data we see on the customer success side with HockeyStack. On the marketing side, everything is on HockeyStack. We build our all hands decks, our investor decks. We also make day-to-day decisions on our marketing side with HockeyStack. And a product too. So we see like what people are using, how often they use it, what are the features, functionalities they use it. So everything is kind of like running on HockeyStack. And now we are getting to a point where we action from HockeyStack too. So like audiences, outbound, everything. Hopefully at one point we'll run from HockeyStack.
It's amazing. Yeah. And I think it's a true testament of believing in your product so much that you scale your company with your own product. It's awesome. Another thing that I find really interesting that you guys have done, you've invested heavily in content. So whether that's, working with consultants for your organic content, whether that's hiring top quality producers to produce video content, you guys have all these skits. I don't know if you've actually taken acting classes, but it's funny regardless, and it attracts eyeballs. So it's like, it's been a massive lever, it seems like, that you guys are pulling, and I'm assuming it's driving a ton of traffic. But what inspired you? Like, I guess what creators have inspired you to do stuff like that? What business owners have inspired you to do stuff like that? Where do these ideas come from? And did you actually take acting classes, or is that just part of the whole skit?
No, we didn't take acting classes. And you can probably see that we didn't take acting classes, which makes it even better. So this is irrelevant, but we hired actors once, and it completely flopped. Like you probably didn't even see it because it get like 5,000-6,000 impressions, and then kind of stopped doing it. Like for example, when I do like one of our commercials is at like 300,000 right now. Impressions $5. I had closed like 200, 250, 150. Like the lowest is 100K. So the people, I think I really want to have our own employees be at the forefront of our content, and I really value that. It's not always easy to convince them, but once they get into it, they actually like it. The decision was basically in the first days of HockeyStack when we didn't have any funding. Was basically we need to find people to talk to. We need to get customers. Where these people hang out? It's LinkedIn. This is like 2022. And then I started posting every day. Back then, twice a day was working really well. So I was doing twice a day, every day. And my co-founder, CEO Bura, was doing the same thing too. And then kind of like we found our first customers on LinkedIn basically by DMing everyone and saying, hey, we are building this product. Would you like to give feedback? Some of them became our customers. Some of them became our first early adopters, advisors, evangelists. Then over time, I kind of saw the value of LinkedIn in a way that it's not just like DMing people, but it's also something, I don't know how to explain this really well, but sometimes I don't like it, but sometimes it feels like it is basically connecting with other people around the world in a different way. And sometimes I need to post stuff that I don't like. It comes with the job. But overall, it is like a different platform that gives me basically ability to every single day I'm able to reach 50, 60, 100,000 people at once. And it's just big leverage for business. And also it's like a different feeling. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, it's a different feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a massive lever for us too. So obviously, we're on the podcast right now. This has been a lever for us. It's brand new, but I mean, Ali and I've been posting 3 to 5 times a week, every week for the last 2 years on LinkedIn, and we built a multi-million-dollar business doing it. Right. So the power of LinkedIn is definitely there, and I think a lot of people are seeing that. But I think some people are just doing it a lot better than others. You, in particular, I think are doing it extremely well. Got guys like Adam Robinson. Clay has done it incredibly well. There's just a handful of companies that have really stood out, I feel like, in terms of content. And I feel like growth rates are showing because of it as well. So it's really interesting to me. I know we only have 3 minutes left, but do you have a little bit of extra time? Can we go over a little bit?
Yeah, I can do 15 more minutes.
Perfect. So I know Ali had a handful of questions particular to company culture and how you establish that as you scale from, a brand new startup to where you guys are today. So yeah.
Yeah, I think something that's really important to us is leading by example. So like showing people how to be in the accounts, like actually doing the work and proving to people that you're capable of it and setting the example for the standard of excellence that you expect. And so I'm just curious how you yourself maintain that, like the balance of leading people, but also trying to be in the weeds and setting the example of the work. So how do you look at that?
Yes, it's a great question. So um, I think the number one thing that we have done really well since beginning, and also, I mean, not everything is going well at any point. Like right now, I can name 10 things that are not going well. At certain points, I can name 50 things that are not going well. But basically, the points where most things failed were the times when me and my co-founders basically stepped out of whatever we are responsible of, and then basically, for example, the times that went horrible and the worst times of HockeyStack were the ones when, if you would ask me when is the last time that you were in a sales call or you watched a sales call, and I would say 2-3 weeks, those are the times basically HockeyStack's revenue was at the lowest, or our momentum was at the lowest. Or whenever you ask my co-founder, what was the last time you spent 2-3 hours reviewing code or even writing code yourself? Or what is the last feature that you built yourself and owned from end to end? And if they say 2-3 months ago, that was the lowest momentum in the engineering cycles. So I fundamentally believe, one, if this is a new thing for the company, a founder needs to own it at the point where they actually can document everything to give to someone and then stay involved with it. And new, for example, a great example right now, so today, for example, I had 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 11 to 12, 3 different sales calls. All of these sales calls are basically a new way of talking about HockeyStack, the way that we're transitioning into AI for go-to-market. And I basically wrote the entire new script. We are building pipeline for it. I also built pipeline for it myself. I take a lot of sales calls. I basically test it myself, see what's working, what's not working, see the market. And also we change the scripts for our SDRs. So for example, every day we call thousands of people, talk to thousands of people every day. So like we're using Nooks. So on Nooks you can basically listen to like whatever they're talking about right now. So I listen to that on another screen, on another laptop all the time. And you need to be really close to whatever you're doing. So for you, for example, you need to be in every single account. I would probably know about, I mean, it's really hard, but I would probably know about every single account, what they care about, what are their metrics this week, what should we improve, what are we not doing well, what are we doing well. So like, if you cannot, nobody is capable of doing everything. So I cannot take every single sales call today. Like there's a reason that we have salespeople, but then also if there's something new, I need to be at the forefront. Or if you're making a change, I need to be really, really close to the people who are actually closest to the customer. I really value that. Anything that is new. The number one biggest problem with founders, the reason a lot of them fail, is because, for example, they think to do sales, you need to hire a salesperson if you're at zero revenue. But you need to do at least, in my opinion, $1 million yourself, then hire someone. Because then, essentially, one day, I talked about Michael. Michael one day told me, basically he said, "You're stupid." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you're trying to outsource thinking." Like that was like one of the first days of HockeyStack and one of the first days of YC. Not first days of HockeyStack, but like really early in our journey, like 35 customers. That really stuck with me. So whenever I think like, I need to hire this person, or I need to talk to this person, or I need to have this role at the company to achieve that, I always think, am I outsourcing thinking? Like, does this person need to come in and then think for me? Or do I know what to do? I just don't have the time or capability to execute on this. If it's the latter, I need to hire someone. If it's the former, I need to figure it out myself first. And there are points where, for example, nobody is able to do everything. For example, me, I'm great at building things from 0 to 1. But I'm really good at that. But I'm not great at 1 to 10, 10 to 100. So there are people that are really good executors, really good operators. They can take from something from 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000. Maybe there are like 2-3 people that in the company's journey. One takes it from 0 to 1, one takes from 1 to 10, one takes from 10 to 100. So don't get me wrong, I don't know everything, but even if it's 10 to 100, I need to be extremely close with that person that is doing that so that I can inform the company's overall decisions. And also I need to learn how they're making us go from 10 to 100 so I can also take the same approach in other aspects of the business. And 2, I basically need to be really close with if there's a VP of sales that's taking us from 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000, I need to be really close with the SDRs, with the AEs that are talking to the prospects, customers every single day. I really value that. And also it shows like the other thing is, I think our relationship with me and my co-founders, and probably the same thing for you as well. You're kind of like being a co-founder is really literally similar with I'm not married and I never got married, but I think it's very similar to that. We also lived together for a long time. So essentially in like a family, you kind of feel like if your parents are not doing well, if they don't have a good relationship, then essentially you also don't have a good relationship with them. And also overall in a family, you don't have like, you're not happy. So the same thing goes for a company too. If the co-founders don't have a good relationship, the entire company doesn't have a good relationship and they don't feel like they're not energized. They don't want to come to work or they're not as motivated as they can. So essentially whatever the founders has together and also individually basically rolls back to every single person in the company. So I really value that too. So if I have a certain level of intensity, everyone is either coming close to me or they're benchmarking me. If I don't work hard, nobody works hard. If I don't have that attention to detail, nobody has the attention to detail. So I really value that. I hope that answers the question. It was like a long-winded answer, but
No,
It answers the question. It answers the question, but I also have another question in follow up to what you just said, because this is something that I personally struggle with, and I think Ali can attest to this. I don't have an off button, and I struggle with that. Like I actually do struggle with it. And I'm not trying to get on my high horse and say I work so much, I work so hard, blah blah blah. But honestly, I don't have an off button. I have OCD, and I lock in. And when I lock in, I sometimes I have a very difficult time stopping,
I know you
which
called
is
me
good
at
and
10
bad.
p.m.
Exactly. I called you at 10 p.m. one
and I
time,
picked it up.
and but you were doing you picked up. We had a call. Exactly. So you're the same way. I know it. But like with that said, there's a balance, right? Because not everyone owns the company. You want everyone to be as invested as you are in the business. It's obviously impossible to maintain that as you continue to scale. But with that said, have you found that there's a limit on if I'm too intense or if I'm working too hard? And it's like your team, maybe they are trying to keep up with you, but eventually they might burn out because they have less incentive in the business. Have you found that breaking point or that balance? Or I guess, how do you manage that?
Yeah, really good question. So basically, what I say is, whenever I hire someone, and if someone works with me closely for a couple months, they also know this too. It's basically whenever I hire someone, I tell them that whatever the position is, it might be senior, it might be VP, it might be even if it's like C level. I basically tell the same thing. I can Slack you, I can message you. I wouldn't call you, but I can Slack you and I can message you at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 1 a.m., anytime in the day. I message you when I'm available, when I'm working. You can get back to me whenever you're free. I don't want to wait for 12 hours a day, 2 days. There's like an SLA for me as well, but essentially you don't need to get back to me immediately. It doesn't mean if I ask a question at 1 a.m., it doesn't mean that you need to get back to me at 1:10 a.m. So, if you're earlier stage, so like sub 100 to 200 employees, I think everyone needs to be at a similar wavelength. So like everyone needs to be really intense. But there's levels to it. One, it depends on the department. So like sellers need to work 7 days a week. There's no other way. Like there's no way a seller works 4 days a week and they do.
And that's my background too, right?
Yeah.
And it's like when you come from that, it's like it's very hard to get out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, but you cannot expect that from customer success, for example. Then you would basically burn people out. Or like you cannot expect that from marketing or recruiting. So there's one departments, but I think overall as a company you need to have a benchmark. It's like it's not like a set, I don't know, we work 80 hours a week kind of thing, but there's like a certain feeling, certain intensity. I always say if we can do it today, we should do it today, even if it doesn't make a difference right now for this specific task. Overall, if we do it across 60 people, then essentially we get really further versus if we can do it tomorrow morning, we will do it tomorrow morning. If you aim for tomorrow morning, it's usually you get it done tomorrow, end of today. So then if you do that across 60 people, everything is delayed. So one, you need to get a benchmark across everyone. Two, you need to be really transparent. For example, there's some times where someone can say, you're like, I'm getting extremely tired. And that's also important. So we have like, I do our culture values kind of thing whenever, like usually every 2 weeks or so when we have 5, 6, 10 people at new people at the company. I did a session where basically I say, we don't have, like basically across all the company, everyone needs to give feedback transparently. So if I'm basically, my personality is I'm extremely intense. I have high urgency. I work extremely hard. I either work, sleep, eat, play video games. So across all of this stuff, and I have a dog too. So across all of this stuff, I work extremely hard. Then it's my company. So at some point, it might be too much. If it's too much, tell me. But overall, we demand and expect high urgency, high intensity, attention to detail. We need everyone to work hard at this stage. And this just comes with joining a startup. If it's not for you, it's okay. If you already joined, you can leave if it's not for you. But also, we don't expect the same level from every department. So, yeah, I think as long as there's transparency and people trust you with their feedback, and you don't do the same thing for every single person at like their levels to it, it is definitely fine. And if there are a lot of people that are not a fit, and it's okay, we also need big companies, and we need people that will work at big companies. We also need people who work at startups. We also need people who will be consultants that will work for 4 days. So we will need everything in the world. You just need to choose for your stage who are the best people and who want to be at this stage.
Yep, that makes sense. I'm also curious how you do that with having three of you as co-founders, because like Ali and I, obviously there's two of us, right? So Ali and I, it's just, we say things very directly to each other. I tend to be the one that's a little too intense a lot of the time, fully aware of it. But, you know, I do that a lot and I put a lot of pressure on Ali, sometimes unnecessarily. And I put a lot of pressure on myself, but it's like, it's just Ali and I. So we go back and forth and we can have that straight communication. But with you guys, there's three of you. So are all three of you guys on the same wavelength in that regard? And if not, how do you avoid, I guess, two of you accidentally teaming up against the other? Not intentionally, but two of you might agree on something and the third one might not.
About like not agreeing on intensity or urgency or in general?
I guess, yeah, urgency, intensity, like sharing the same vision for the company, all of that. Because if there's three, you know, it's always, that's why a lot of people want to have two kids instead of three kids. Three can have one team up on the other two, or two team up on the other one. You know, it can happen.
Yeah. First of all, we are on the same like wavelength in terms of urgency, intensity. I would probably think my co-founders are outworking me most weeks. They're incredible, really, really hard workers, smarter than me. So we don't have any problems with like working hard. We also have some extraordinary things. Like for example, we would do like across the three of us, even today, we do daily stand-ups. For example, like we have a Slack bot that asks, like this is not something that I shared anywhere, but we basically have something like Slack bot that asks, what did you get done yesterday? What are the bullshit tasks that you shouldn't spend time on, but you spend time on? What are you gonna get done today? So like everyone sees that, and then we do calendar audits together. And then we do like basically we come together and we ask each other transparently, is there anything like we can do better together? Is there anything I can unblock for you? Or like what are the things that you spend time on that you don't want to spend time on? So we're really transparent in that aspect. For company vision, we have like what we're gonna build is on the product side. Overall, as we have 6, sometimes 7 hours blocked on every Sunday. So we basically come to the office at 4, sometimes earlier. We usually start at 4 p.m. We usually end at like 10:30, 11 p.m. every Sunday at the office. We basically start from like what happened that week, like a retro. We come together, we write like an agenda. We usually don't write an agenda before that, so we basically write it together. And then we go over it. That is like a really good time for us to reflect, to think about strategic things. We can zoom out a little bit because day to day you have lots of meetings, podcasts, sales calls, customer meetings, everything. So it's a good time. Product vision, we have like we openly talk about it. We decide on things, but ultimately, as we talked about in the beginning, my co-founder and CEO Bura is an incredible engineer. Is a really good visionary, is a really good vision. And can understand things that I cannot understand, especially from the product side. So the final, very, very final decision is his decision. We until this point, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but until this point, we never disagreed on like what to build or what is the right vision for the company. But if at any point I fundamentally disagree, and if he thinks something is worth for the company to go after, and if there is enough reason, he would make the final decision.
So he's the visionary between the three of you.
Yeah. So there are a lot of things that I could never think about that he thought about, which came out to be true. So he would make the final decision. But until this point, we disagreed a lot. But in the end, we usually come to the same conclusion. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
Ali, did you have any
You
other
say you
questions?
guys
Yeah.
do calendar audits? Is that what you said? You guys look at each other's calendars to make sure you're making the best
Yeah.
use of.
We
Yeah.
did that yesterday.
We do calendar
We did that
audits.
yesterday because I had like 60 meetings this week, and Ali was like, "What is going on with your calendar?"
Yeah, we do calendar audits. Also, our calendars are only open between us. So, I mean, I don't really check out anyone like we don't really check out our calendars day to day and then see like what's going on. But basically, that gives like a transparency between the co-founders, which is really important. Again, nobody's like looking at my calendar and say, "Oh, why are you meeting with this person?" kind of thing. It never happened. It will never happen. But it gives like a transparency between people.
Yeah, yeah, we do the same thing.
Yeah.
It helps. But yeah, trying to reduce some of these meetings. The thing is, Amir, I tend to agree with you in a lot of this. Like, you know, we don't like to publicly talk about our revenue, but we are in the multiple millions, right? And at this point, also, you would think like, why are you taking so many sales calls still? But at the same time, if you're not on the front lines getting feedback from prospects and understanding what they do like, what they don't like, we're an agency. We don't have a product, but at the end of the day, we do have a product. Our product is our service, right? So it's like if we don't know what people like and prefer, if we're not on the front lines, we see things go to shit, basically. So, in my mind, when Ali and I were doing a calendar audit yesterday, my calendar, we're thinking about it, and it's like, do you need to be on every single one of those calls? And like the majority of them, we've had a very busy week with sales calls, thankfully. I do think I need to be on. So we're trying to figure out, like, I really like the way you said it. It's like, do I need to hire somebody basically to think for me, or I need somebody to hire because they need to do the things that I don't have time to do, but I designed how to do them already. So I really like that way of thinking that you talked about.
Yeah.
Give me some takeaways.
There, of course, like there are roles. Like there's a reason why executive teams exist. Like for example, our VP of customer success came in 2 months, 2.5 months ago, and there are lots of things that we couldn't design or execute that he came in, executed, and also planned himself. But if he came in at a point where, for example, we were trying to figure out how to onboard a customer, not how to improve onboarding, then there would be a problem. There's a reason why he's not a founder and he's a VP of customer success versus we are a founder. First, you need to figure out how to onboard a customer. Then you need to bring on someone who would basically decrease the onboarding time, make customers happier, make onboarding faster, like design the playbook for customer success. So like we were doing more like brute force onboarding, as we call it. Like basically we are trying to go as fast as possible. We need to onboard really fast and all that stuff. There's like essential playbook, but essentially you need to have someone like Sunil, who's our VP customer success, to come in and then improve that playbook. But first, you need a playbook.
That makes sense. I know we're at time. Ollie, I know you had a handful of other questions, but
No, I think we got through some pretty interesting topics. So
awesome.
So I'm
Well,
always
Amir,
happy,
this has been fun.
yeah, I'm always happy to do second episode too.
Round
Whenever you guys
two.
want. Yeah, round two.
Yeah, but round two, I feel like it's got to be like round two, the dark side. Like you've got to have your earring out. You've got to be wearing all black. We all have to be wearing all black. It's like then we get into the really detailed, deep stuff.
Yeah, of course. I'm always happy to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I think this was episode
Cool.
5. So yeah, we'll have you back on for episode 50 or something like that. Post series D with the earring and everything.
Please. You don't need to
Yeah.
wait that much. Whenever you want.
Yeah, no, we don't need to wait that long. We don't need to wait that long. You'll be public by then. Cool. Well, this has been a blast. We're definitely going to do a round two. And Amir, thanks for coming on, man. And thanks for keeping it so transparent and honest. We appreciate it.
Of course, thank you very much.